We're sharing with you 3 key roles in CCI apprenticeships in live production repair centers. One is the training manager, the second is the trainer, and the third is the training advocate. The manager is responsible for the process and the progress of the trainer and the trainee. The trainer is responsible for transferring their skills and knowledge to the trainee. The advocate is responsible for the overall learning environment and holding each person accountable for their activities and roles. All 3 of these roles are responsible for and are focused on the trainee developing the skills necessary to become successful. So the manager works together with the trainer in a coaching role to help them learn better ways and better techniques of transferring their skills to the trainee. They also monitor the progress of the trainee and monitor the progress of the trainer. Their job is developing more trainers where possible. The advocate works with the trainer and helps them understand and how to maintain the relationship with their trainee and with the manager, make sure that there aren't any gaps in how they interact together. The advocate also works with the training manager in helping them moderate the pace. In a live production environment, it's critical to not overwhelm a new trainee with too many skills to do and too many tasks to do at the same time they're trying to be a helper to their trainer. This is very critical. So let's have a deeper look into what each of these characteristics look like for a person that would be great at each of these different jobs. So the training manager, you're looking at somebody that's going to be spending anywhere from 14 to 32 hours per year on this role. Easily could be somebody that's tasked with doing other things at the shop. It could be an owner, it could be an employee, it could be a third party. In either event, it needs to be somebody with the right temperament. They should be knowledgeable in the subject matter being trained. They also should be competent and confident in an online environment as a coach. They should also know the skills that are being transferred and being able to adapt to and identify different learning styles. They promote on-the-job training as one of the best methods of getting people into the industry and helping them receive the skills transferred from their trainers. Again, this could be an owner, could be an employee doing this as part of their existing job, or it could be a third party like a Verifax or a Vico coach that could be involved in the process. The trainer is the person that works with that trainee every day, with that apprentice. And it's estimated that they spend about 75 hours a year in direct transfer of knowledge to that new trainee. They foster this learning culture. They love learning new things themselves, and they're patient with others in their learning process and their process of discovery. They understand this key element that failure and mistakes often lead to the deepest learning and the deepest discovery of how to do things right. They're great at technical skills of what they are trying to transfer to their trainee. They may not be the fastest, but they are highly technically skilled. And they're of a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. They don't think that they know everything. They're constantly learning, and they're participating in the process of discovery with their trainee. The training advocate is estimated to spend upwards of about 15 hours a year, depending again on how many apprentices they have. They're empathetic to learner needs. They're empathetic to management needs. They're also sympathetic to trying to keep, live production going on. They understand different personality styles and work style differences, and they help each of the parties involved set solid boundaries. They also hold them accountable for staying within those boundaries and not overstepping their bounds. They're a good communicator. They actually, in written or spoken communication, they do this very well. And they have the respect of managers, the trainers, and the trainees. Some of the daily activities that each role would be responsible for and activated in would be, for the training manager, managing the learning process. So they would be there from the very beginning with each of the apprentices. They would onboard them. They perform periodic learning checks to make sure that they're on track with each of the skills they should be learning. They review some of the work samples that are submitted by the apprentice and the work that's graded by the trainer. They correct any mistakes involved and make adjustments, and they assess those skills being developed on an ongoing basis. The trainer transfers the skills. They are the mentor for this trainee. They develop great skills on how to demonstrate what they know and what they're trying to transfer to their new trainee, often using a tag team approach on different projects, helping them learn how to do it gradually, backing away from that process and allowing the apprentice to take over where appropriate. They also grade each of the skills on each of the tasks that the apprentice does on a 3-2-1 scale, 3 being good and 1 being unsatisfactory. Anything less than a 2 should require remediation and a correction before they move forward. They also are involved in approving all the repair plans that the trainee is developing, making sure they're not skipping any steps, and hold them accountable to doing each of the steps in their plan. And then the trainee returns and they critique their plan and the work overall when it was done, and the trainee actually submits all of the work on that. They are also involved in assessing the skills for each of the trainees they're responsible for. The training advocate is one that optimizes the overall environment. They kind of have their finger on the pulse of what's going on, interactions between the trainer and the trainee, and between the manager and the trainer, and the manager and the trainee. They know company policies and procedures. They are good at developing plans to enhance learning. They have an open door policy as a listener to any of these 3 parties, that they're able to listen and take appropriate action based on what they learn from each of those interactions and give great advice on what to do next. They also monitor the trainee work submissions, and not that they need to be extremely good at analyzing that work being submitted, but they monitor to make sure that they're submitting appropriate activities and work representative of the skill being developed. And where necessary, they're the ones that likely will be developing a remediation plan to give a short time frame to correct deficiencies and help them get back on track on their learning. Some of the interactions between them, between the manager and the trainer, for example, is in this coaching environment. So the manager helps coach their trainer how to do their job better at transferring skills. So they help them learn how to demonstrate what they learned and what they know how to do. A lot of trainers, a lot of technicians and estimators and painters don't remember the time when they didn't know what they know now. And so it's hard to deconstruct that and go back to that point where the trainee is right now and to put themselves in their seat and try and figure out how they would appreciate learning how to do the next step. They help their trainer with learning how to do things from simple to complex. Don't give them welding aluminum panels together before they've learned how to do some minor dent repair, for example. So they also help the trainer discover what the trainee already knows. So that they need to find those things out so they're not just beating them over the head with things they already know and creating a reflection of boredom when they're trying to teach them something they already know. So they help them also with understanding what the scope of training is, keep them within the bounds of what the training curriculum is. And their overall job is to help build and retain more trainers, to help them become great trainers, not just of this apprentice, but future apprentices as well, so that they can continue building. So the advocate and the trainer work together, mostly on the apprentice interaction. So they help them recognize different personality styles, different learning styles, and help them interpret what those generational differences might be. And they help translate those issues that the trainer might be experiencing with the apprentice and the trainee, and translate that into something that's actionable. Well, what can we do about that? So how can you do that differently tomorrow? What are you thinking? And the advocate works as an advisor to the trainer on how to improve that relationship and maintain it better. The advocate also works with the training manager, and so this is really about learning assessment. They consult on style differences, They'll consult on monitoring the progress of the trainee and consider mismatches where there's a conflict going on, and perhaps suggest, maybe shifting to a different trainer or a different trainee for that trainer. We don't want to burn anybody out. We want to make sure that everything is optimal. The advocate is key to making sure that happens, and is solid throughout the training process. They can also suggest adapting a different process for helping the learning take place better and stronger. And overall, they work on harmonizing the entire program together.